ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। नष्टाप्रयेषु अभद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवती उत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्ठिकी। ओमज्ञानतिमिरन्दस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मीलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। मूकं करोति वाचालं पङ्गुं लङ्घयते गिरिं यत्कृपातं वन्दे श्रीगुरुं देवतारिणं परमानन्दमाधवं श्रीचैतन्यईश्वरम्। वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभयेव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। श्री चैतन्य मनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूप कलामयं ददाति स्वापदान्तिकम्। श्री रूप गोस्वामी प्रभुपाद की जय, श्री प्रभुपाद की जय, गौर भक्तों की जय। Discussing from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Creation of the Fourth Order, Chapter 23. Prudu Maharaj going back home, back to Godhead, verse number 27. Even 26 also we have to discuss, but we'll see. We have to continue for 2 days. Tesham durapam kim tu anyam matyānām bhagavat padam bhuvi lola yusho ye vai naiskarmyam sadhayanti yuta teshāṃ durāpam kim tu vanyam. Teshāṃ durāpam kim tu vanyam. Tesham durapam kim tvanyam matyanam bhagavat padam bhuvi lola yuso ye vai naiskarmyam sadhayanti yuta. Tesham durapam kim tvanyam matyanam bhagavat padam bhuvi lola yuso ye vai naiskarmyam sadhayanti yuta. Dropam is very important. It is very difficult to obtain. Just connected to the previous verse. Durvibhagyam. Very difficult. There. For Matya, for a living entity in the material world to go back to Bhagavat Padam, retain, go back, Goloka Vrindavan or Vaikuntha Loka. It's very difficult. And that's what has been discussed here. Tesham, of them, Durapam, difficult to obtain. Kim, what? Tu, but, Anyat, anything else. Matyanam, of the human beings, Bhagavat Padam, the kingdom of God, Bhuvi in the world, Lola, flickering, Ayusha, span of life, ye, those, why, certainly, Naiskarmyam, the path of liberation, Sadhayanti, execute, Uta, exactly. Translation by Reverend Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada ki jai. In this material world, every human being has a short span of life. But those who are engaged in devotional service go back home, back to Godhead, for they are actually on the path of liberation. For such a person, there is nothing which is not available. In this material world, every human being has a short span of life. But those who are engaged in devotional service go back home, back to Godhead, for they are actually on the path of liberation. For such a person, there is nothing which is not available. And Bhagavad Gita 9.33, Lord Krishna says, Anityam asukam lokam imam prapya bhajasamam. The glories of devotees. The Lord here declares that this material world is full of miseries. All Asukam, and at the same time it's very flickering, Anityam. This is a Kamara Matre Pratma Dharman Bhagavatam here. Tadapi Adruvam Asukam, Adruvam Anityam. Api Haloke. So, Prahlad from 5 years old, it's a one must execute devotion service because in this world because it's temporary and it's full of miseries. So at the same time, it's very flickering Anitya. Therefore, one's only duty is to engage himself in devotion service. This is the best end to which human life can be put. Those devotees who are constantly engaged in the service of the lotus feet of the Lord achieve not only all material benefit but also all spiritual benefit. But at the end of life, they go back home, back to Godhead. Their destination is described in this verse as Bhagavat Padam. The word Padam means abode, and Bhagavat means the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Thus, the destination of the devotees is the abode of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In this verse, the word Naiskarmya, which means transcendental knowledge, very important, is also significant. Unless one comes to the platform of transcendental knowledge and offers devotional service to the Lord, one is not perfect. Generally, the process of jnana, yoga, karma are executed life after life before one gets a chance to render pure devotional service to the Lord. This chance is given by the grace of a pure devotee, and it is in this way only that one can actually attain liberation. In the context of this narration, the wives of the demigod repented because although they had the opportunity of a birth in a higher planetary system, a lifetime spanning millions of years and all material comforts, they were not as fortunate as Prithu Maharaj and his wife, Archie, who were actually surpassing them. In other words, Prithu Maharaj and his wife scorned promotion to the higher planetary system and even to Brahma Loka because the position which they were attaining was incomparable. In Bhagavad Gita 8.16, Lord affirms, Abrahma Bhumanal Loko, Pumara Bhaktino Mamu Bhunteya Panajamana Vidyate. From the highest planet in the material world to the lowest, all are places of misery, wherein repeated birth and death take place. In other words, even if one goes to the highest planet, Brahmaloka, he has to return to the miseries of birth and death. In 9th chapter of Bhagavad Gita 9.21, Lord Krishna also asserts, Tetam Bhukta Sargalokam Vishalam Kshine Punye Matyalokam Visanti. When they have thus enjoyed heavenly sense pleasure, they return to this material mortal planet again. Thus, after exhausting the results of pious activities, one has to come again to the lower planetary system and begin a new chapter of pious activities. Therefore, said in Srimad Bhagavatam 1.5.12, Naiskaryam api achyuta bhava vajjitam. This is related to Dhruva Maharaj past time. Somebody was asking a question on the day on Sunday morning class about Narada Muni between Dhruva Maharaj. Yeah. Because Dhruva Maharaj has been instructed to meditate on the Lord and then you can chant Om Namo Narayana, Dvadasaksha mantra. At that time, that is a particular mantra. So that's what given. In Kali Yuga, Hare Krishna Maha mantra is being given. That's what we have to follow. The path of liberation is not at all secure unless one attains the devotional service of the Lord. Even if one is promoted to the impersonal Brahmajyoti, he runs every chance of falling down into this material world. If it is possible to fall down from the Brahmajyoti, which is beyond the higher planetary system in this material world, then what can be said of the ordinary yogis and karmis who can only be elevated to the higher material planets? Thus, the wives of the denizens of the higher planetary system did not very much appreciate the results of karma, gnana, and yoga. Very important verse. A lot to talk about. But let's chant the Shastram being Purushottamam. Cheto Darpanam Adyanam Bhava Mahadavag Nirvapanam Sreya Kairava Chandrika Vitaranam Vidyavadu Jivanam Anandam Buddhivardhanam Pratipadam Purnamrita Swadhanam Sarvatma Snapanam Param Vijayate Sri Krishna Sankirtanam नाम्नामकारि बहुधा निज सर्वशक्ति तत्रार्पिता नियमिता स्मरणेन काल एतादृशी तव कृपा भगवन् ममापि दुर्दैवमीदृशी हाजनिनानुराग निनादपि सुनिचेन तरोरिव सहिष्णु मानिना मानदेन कीर्तनीय सदा हरि न धनं न जनं न सुन्दरीं कवितां वा जगदीश कामये मम जन्मनि जन्मनीश्वरे भवतात् भक्तिरहैतुकी त्वयि ऐनं दतनुजकिङ्करं पतितं मां विषमे भवाम्बुधो कृपया तव पादपङ्कजस्थितधूलिसदृशं विचिन्तय नयनं कलदस्सुधारय वदनं गद्यतहृदया गिरा पुलके निचितं वपु तव नाम ग्रहणेन भविष्यति युगायुतं निमेषेण चक्षुषा प्रावृषायुतं शून्यायुतं जगत्सर्वं गोविन्दविरहेण मे गोविन्दविरहेण मे गोविन्दविरहेण मे अश्लीषवां पादरतां तिनस्तु मां मर्महतां करोतु माम् यथा तदा वातुलं पटो मत्प्राणनादस्तु सैवनापरं प्राणनादस्तु सैवनापरम् Matpranadastu Sayeva Napaha. Especially the fourth verse, where it is important point connected to this verse. If one wants to go back to Godhead, he has to feel that he's fallen down in this material world, and he also has to feel his insignificant position, King Kara. That's when actually there is a then we can be there's a possibility for us to receive mercy, and there's a possibility for us to going back home, back to Godhead. That means with the fallen condition, thinking that we're insignificant, then we'll think we have to surrender to the spiritual master, surrender to the Supreme Lord. Without that, there is no chance for going back home, back to God, however great demigod we are. So how do you surrender? So, and especially in Purushottam, this chapter is very much important, 15th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, clearly laying out in verse number 5, very, very important verse, clearly laying out how one can go back home, back to Godhead. Nirmana moha jatasanga dosha adhyatma nitya vinivrutta kama vandai vimuktai sukadukka sangnai gachanti amuda padam abhyayam. That padam abhyayam means inexplicable, inexhausted. That is the supreme abode, which is the spiritual world, Vaikuntha. Before that, we can see that how the spiritual masters are established. There is a nice, very nice, beautiful pranam mantra offered to Sri Prabhupada by one of the great pundits in Vrindavan Dham. Vrindavane Ramanareti Prasida Bhumau Tatraiva Krishna Balarama Sopada Mule Jnanam Paramapurusham Bhakti Yuktam Atreva Prabhupada Namo Namaste. Beautifully explained that how Sri Prabhupada is situated in Sri Vrindavan Dham, in the consciousness of Vrindavan, the consciousness of Radha and Krishna, always desiring and trying to execute the instructions for their pleasure, for their associates, Acharya Parampara's pleasure. So that is the only consciousness he has. That's why Vrindavane Ramana Reti Prasida Bhuma is situated in that place always eternally. Then explain that not only that, Tatraiva Krishna Balarama Swapada Mule at the lotus feet of Krishna Balaram. And then further, Jnanam, and his duty is to, as in this verse is mentioned, Adhyatma Jnanam. The transcendental knowledge is due to Jnanam Param, not ordinary Karma, Jnana, Yoga. No, is distributing the most highest, that is the Prema Pumardo Mahan, Krishna Prema, how to attain Krishna Prema, not even liberation. Jnanam Param, Parama Purusham, Bhakti Yuktam. That's the Bhakti is also mentioned, Bhakti Yuktam. Datreva Prabhupada Namo Namaste. Very beautifully laid out what is the Prabhupada's position, what consciousness is carrying, and what the disciple and sadhaka is supposed to carry out the duties of the Prabhupada. Everything is in that particular pranam mantra. Very, very beautifully laid out. Now we're discussing here. Nirmana moha jitasanga dosha adhyatma nitya vinivruta kava dandai muktai sukadukka sangne gachanti amuda padam abhyam. So there, the last line it says, one can go back home, back to Godhead. How? Five characteristics or six characteristics, qualifications are mentioned. If one wants to go back home, back to Godhead, what is how? It's very difficult, but provided if they follow these six characteristics, then they can go back home, back to God. But it doesn't matter where, what background, which family, where they came from previously, none of these matters. As long as these six characteristics, if we are able to get to, then qualification is being given to enter into the spiritual world. So the first one is mentioned as nirmana. Nirmana means without any false prestige. Mana means looking for prestige. Nirmana means without false prestige. Nirmana moha and without illusion. These are all has to be given up. Nirmana moha, jita sangha dosha. Sangha dosha means we have faulty association with lower modes, passion, ignorance, and goodness. So that has to be given up as well. Nirmana moha jata sangha dosha. Then adhyatma vritta vinivritta kama, giving up all the desire for sense enjoyment, giving up the lust. Vinivritta kama. Anything, any desire which is away, taking us away from Krishna and Guru, that we have to give up. Vinivritta kama. Bandhair, vimuktair, sukadokta samnair. And happiness, distance, both we have to give up. Arjuna thinking that I want to go to forest because that's where the happiness is there. If I fight, there is no happiness here. Whom I am going to enjoy even if I win the kingdom? I don't want this. I want to go to forest. Krishna said, no, I want you to fight. You have to do duty for me, not for you, not for your family, not for somebody else. You have to do it. That's where actual bhakti is. One, we are doing any activity for Krishna and Guru, even for chanting, hearing, service, worshipping the deity, everything. Everything what we do, if it has to be called bhakti, we are called to be devotee, then it has to be only for Guru and Krishna. For anything else, it is not bhakti, it is not a devotional platform. It has mixture. It will mixture bhakti, karma mixture bhakti, jnana mixture bhakti. That's why the bhakti, pure bhakti is not discussed until 9th chapter, 9th, 10th, 12th. The 7th and 8th are talking about is laying out the grounds. What is karma mixture bhakti, what is jnana mixture bhakti, and what is yoga mixture bhakti in the 8th chapter. And gradually bringing us to the actual pure devotion service in the 9th chapter, very crucial chapter. That's the most confidential knowledge. It's very difficult to understand. The underlying principle of the whole 9th and 12th and the 10th chapter is everything must be done. Whether you are offering obeisances or thinking of him, becoming friend, everything has to be only for Krishna's pleasure. That's why Arjuna said, I have used so many foul words and called you in so many different ways. Please forgive me. You are my Lord and Master, so please forgive me. And he also realizing and reflecting when Lord left that all the powers are gone. He couldn't even fight with the coward boys who were taking away the queens of Dwarka. Well, after Lord Krishna, he has no power. Same Gandhi, same Arjuna has no capacity. No capacity to fight even with the small boys. So then he could then immediately reflected back. Yeah, this everything has happened. I am victorious because it's only because of Lord Krishna. That because of him only I was able to do. So that's why we have to be in the position of Kinkara, as Kunti Maharani says always. But when we are in the with the full of opulence, thinking that everything belongs to me, is wealth, property, fame, strength, scholarship, beauty, Jammaiswara Sruta Srivir, Yedamana, Madapuman, Naivarhakam Abhidakamai, Akinchana Gochara. Then there is no possibility for us to come to this platform of devotion service and attain Vaikuntha Loka. There is no possibility that we have to give up those tendencies. That means we have to be situated in this Kinkara platform as insignificant servant and give up Nirmana, Moha, and Chitasanga Dosha, then Vinivruta Kama, and then we have to give up our happiness, distress for Guru and Krishna. So if it's happy, obviously we'll do it, but most of the times it may be difficult to do. There may be distress in our thought process, but actually it is actually we have to take great pleasure and great endeavor to execute anything and everything for Guru and Krishna's pleasure. So then we are qualified. And so that means our chanting has to be also in that way. So that is also way to go back, come back to Godhead. In what consciousness we should chant. That is also explained. My dear king, in the place where pure devotees, we have to be in the association of people. Who can give this? How we will learn this qualification? As long as we are in the association of pure devotees, we are constantly trying to serve them. Then there is a chance to develop these qualities. Then we have a chance to go back, come back to Godhead. That's why in Canto 4, this has been described. My dear king, in the place where pure devotees live, following the rules and regulations, and thus purely conscious and engaged with great eagerness, see that great eagerness in hearing and chanting the glories of Supreme Personality of Godhead. In that place, if one gets a chance to hear their constant flow of nectar, which is exactly like the waves of river, one will forget the necessities of life, namely hunger and thirst, and become immune to all kinds of fear, lamentation, illusion. Moha, is it? the desires, I said, calm, all those fear, lamentation, everything is gone by simply being in the association of pure devotees and engage in constant hearing. Tasmin moham mukarita madhujit charitra piyusha sesha sarita parita sravanti taye pibanti abhitrusha nrupa gada karnai ta na sprasanti asana trud bayasoka moha. No, automatically, as soon as we are drinking the nectar of this transcendental knowledge of glories of Supreme Lord Sri Krishna through the mouth of the pure devotees, the association of pure devotees, then everything is guaranteed to develop all this. Yatra Bhagavata Rajan Sadhavo Visha the Ashaya Bhagavat Gunanu Katana Sravana Vyagra Chetasa. So, very important instructions how one can go back home, back to Godhead by this applying these principles. That means we have to chant the Panchatattva mantra. We have to chant without offenses. As glories of we will be discussing for many days now from the whole Purushottamans on the glories of the holy name from different subject matter from Chetan Charitamrita, from Harinam Chintamani, from Jaiva Dharma, from different subject matters we are going to discuss because that is where the problem is. If we perfect our chanting, we can develop all the qualities, we can perfect our service, we can perfect our everything, we can perfect, and we can perfect our going back home, back to garden, just like Puthu Maharaj and Madhurachi. Everything is lying in how we are chanting, in what consonants we are chanting. And it's very important. स्वतंत्र ईश्वर प्रेम निगूढ़ भंडार बिलाल यारे तारे ना कैला विचार. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, as Supreme Personality of God Himself, is fully independent. Therefore, although it is most confidentially stored benediction, He can distribute love of God to anyone and everyone without consideration. Adhyapya Deka Chaitanya Nama Yei Laya Krishna Preme Polakastu Vihvala Sehaya. Whether it is offensive or inoffensive, anyone who even now chants Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda is immediately overwhelmed with ecstasy and tears fills his eyes. The Prakrit Sahajiyas who chant Nitai Gaur Radheshyam have very little knowledge of the Bhagavad conclusion and they hardly follow Vaishnava rules and regulations. Yet because they chant Bhajan Nitai Gaur, their chanting immediately evoke tears and other signs of ecstasy. Although they do not know the principles of Vaishnava philosophy and are not very much advanced in education, by these symptoms they attract many men to become their followers. Their ecstatic tears will of course help them in the long run, but as soon as they come in contact with the pure devotee, their lives will become successful. Even in the beginning, however, because they are chanting the holy names of Nitai Gaur, their swift advancement on the path of love of Godhead is very prominently visible because they are taking shelter of Lord Nityananda and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Simply by taking Nityananda Prabhu, one awakens his love for Krishna. Thus, all his bodily limbs are agitated by ecstasy, and tears flow from his eyes like the waters of the Ganga. Nityananda Balite Haya Krishna Premodaya Aulaya Sakala Anga Asru Ganga Vaya. As 6th we saw, Nairam Galada Sudare, how it can happen in this way. Krishna Nama Kare Aparadera Vichare Krishna Balile Aparadira Nahaya Vikar. There are offenses to be considered while chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Therefore, simply by chanting Hare Krishna, one does not become ecstatic. It is very beneficial to chant the names Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaurabhakta before chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Because by chanting these two holy names, Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, one immediately becomes ecstatic. And if he then chants Hare Krishna Mahamantra, he becomes free of offenses. There are 10 offenses to be avoided in chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. The first offense is to blaspheme great personalities who are engaged in distributing the holy name of the Lord. It is said in the Shastra, Krishna Shakti Vina Nahi Tare Pravartam. One cannot distribute the holy names of Hare Krishna Mahamantra unless he is empowered by the Supreme Personality of God. That's what we receive. Even though we chant, we should receive this from the form of initiation by a spiritual master. Therefore, one should not criticize or blaspheme devotee who is thus engaged. Satam Ninda Namna Paramam Aparadam Vitamte Yata Kyatim Yatam Katam Usubate Tat Vigarham. To blaspheme a great saintly person who are engaged in preaching the glories of Hare Krishna Mahamantra is the worst offense at the lotus feet of the holy name. One should not criticize the preacher of the glories of Hare Krishna Mahamantra. If one does so, he is an offender. The Nama Prabhu who is identical with Krishna will never tolerate such blasphemous activities, even from one who passes as a great devotee. This is very important. That's why in the in between, there is no difference between the holy name and the Lord Krishna. But holy name is even more merciful than Lord Krishna. How come? The Lord Krishna doesn't tolerate. He takes it very, very seriously. But the holy name, Nama Prabhu, if you surrender, even if you have made offenses, whatever offenses, however great it is, even including Vaishnava offense. But if we sincerely take shelter of the holy name, again, sincerely praying, repenting and praying, don't want to commit again, not repeating. With that mood, if we chant and take really shelter of the holy name, that can actually evoke our love or devotion. Our offenses can be removed. So that's why everything is in the Nama, holy name. Very important. Sivasya Sri Vishnu ya iha guno namadi sakalam diya vinnam pasyet sa kalu harinama nama hitakara. In the material world, the holy name of Vishnu is all auspicious. Vishnu's name, form, qualities, and pastimes are all transcendental absolute knowledge. Therefore, if one tries to separate the absolute personality of Godhead from his holy name or his transcendental form, qualities, pastimes, thinking them to be material, that is offensive. This is the second offense. Nama Prada. Similarly, to think the names of demigods such as Lord Shiva are as good as the names of Lord Vishnu, or in other words, to think that Lord Shiva and other demigods are other forms of God and therefore equal to Vishnu is also blasphemous. This is the second offense at the lotus feet of the holy name of the Lord. They themselves, especially Lord Shiva, never like somebody is making him the master. Because he is always standing in on the Sankarshan Rama, Nityananda Balaram. Lord Rama is always meditating on Lord Rama. So somebody makes Lord Rama as his servant and Lord Shiva as master, and imagine. So what Lord Shiva will be, what position he will be in. So that we cannot put servant as equal to master without properly knowing. Third offense at the lotus feet of the holy name, which is called Guru Ravagna, is to consider the spiritual master to be material, therefore to envy his exalted position. This is also very important. First, the second, third are very much connected. If we do the first one, then automatically it will go. As we see in Chaitanya Charitamrita, in the case of Madhavendra Puri, his disciple, Ramachandra Puri, great offense. One offends a spiritual master, one offends a devotee, then immediately he does the offense to Guru, and that will go all the way up to even Lord Krishna also. That offensive behavior. Then Madhavendra Puri immediately chastised him and threw him out. And then because of his offensive behavior to Guru, and Guru has taken even seriously. Generally, Guru is very merciful. So he is compassionate. Even if you are offensive like that, sometimes he will still, he will not take it seriously, and he will be compassionate. He will shower his mercy and tell you how to correct. But in this case, it is a serious, grievous offense, and he was not even repenting. So in this case of disciple, so then in that case, it happened that Ramachandra Khan had to even suffer great consequences. He even criticized Lord Krishna himself, Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So that is why this offensive behavior can go from one level to all the way up to even Lord Krishna. If we don't stop, if we don't recognize what we are doing, that's it's very important. Important to understand this Guru or Avagna is serious business. The fourth offense, Shruti Shastra Nindanam, is to blaspheme Vedic literature such as the four Vedas and Puranas. The fifth offense, Ardhavada, is considered the glories of the holy name to be exaggerations. That's what happened also with Adlas Thakur describing the glories and Gopal Chapal. Is not, what are you talking about? I'm Brahmana, I know. Simply by chanting, even Mom Abbas, one can go back home, back to God. What are you talking about? He didn't listen. He didn't go by, because Haridas Thakur is exalted Acharya, Namacharya. Then he was so offensive. So then what happened? In few days, his nose fell apart. So he got disease immediately because the Lord will never tolerate that kind of offensive behavior. If you don't know, then you have to submit and understand and get the quotation from Shastra and where it is said and why is it so. But if you have that offensive way of questioning and not following, especially when it in front of the exalted personalities, sadhus, mahajanas, such a caliber of pure devotee, Haridas Thakur, Brahma Haridas, Lord Brahma himself appeared as Haridas Thakur, more higher position than Lord Brahma, because Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appointed him as Namacharya. So you can understand the position. So that's why it is so he had to take the that reaction, severe reaction. Until then, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had to forgive him. Then by the Haridas Thakur's mercy, then somehow or other he came back. But otherwise, It's very, very difficult. The fifth offense is Ardhavada, is to consider the glories of the holy name to be exalted. Similarly, sixth offense, Harinama Kalpanam, is to consider the holy name of the Lord to be imaginary. Seventh offense is described as Namno Balad Asya hi Papa Buddhi, Na Vidyate Tasya Yamayari Suddhi. Because holy name can clear all the offenses. We cannot even think how many offenses. Millions and millions. Everything can be destroyed. So thinking that anybody performing simple activity, this is the greatest offense again. So that is what is the seventh offense. To think that since Hare Krishna Mahamantra can counteract all sinful reactions, one may therefore go on with his sinful activities and at the same time chant Hare Krishna Mahamantra. To neutralize them is the greatest offense at the lotus feet of Harinam. Eighth offense is dharma vrata tyaga utadi sarva subha kriya samyam api pramada. It is offensive to consider the chanting of Hare Krishna Mahamantra to be religious ritualistic ceremony. Performing religious ceremonies, following vows, and practicing renunciation, sacrifice are all materialistic auspicious activities. The chanting of Hare Krishna Mahamantra must not be compared to such materialistic religiosity. This is an offense at the lotus feet of the holy name of the Lord. Ninth offense is it an offense to preach the glories of the holy name among persons who have no intelligence or no faith in the subject matter. Such people should be given the chance to hear the chanting of Hare Krishna Mahamantra. But in the beginning, they should not be instructed about the glories or the spiritual significance of the holy name. By constant hearing of the holy name, their hearts will be purified and then they will be able to understand the transcendental position of the holy name. The tenth offense, the last one. Srutepi nama mahatme ya priti rahito nara aham mamadik paramo namni so api aparadakrit. If one has heard the glories of the transcendent holy name of the Lord, but nevertheless continues in a materialistic concept of life, thinking I am this body and everything belongs to this body as is mine, aham mameti, and does not show respect and love for chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, this is an offense. These are the 10 offenses. One must know, one must be careful, one must try to not commit these again and again. Then we will come from this Nam Aparad stage to Nam Abbas, second stage, and then Suddhanam. Even if you do Nam Abbas, then liberation is given. Nam Abbas is trying to chant without offenses. Trying. Just even trying to chant without offenses. That is Nam Abbas, clearing stage. And then if you do it for a longer period in that mode, then gradually by the pure devotee's mercy, then we can come to the Suddhanam. Then even one time we chant, then we go back home, back to God, guaranteed. So we'll discuss further. The whole month we'll be discussing the glories of the Holy Name. Thank you, Hare Krishna. Durapam kim tu anyam martyaram bhagavat padam bhuvi lolayuso evai naiskarmyam sadhayanti uta tesham durapam kim tu anyam martyaram bhagavat padam bhuvi lolayuso evai Naiskarmyam sadhayanti uta tesham durapam kintu anyam martyanam bhagavat padam bhuvi lolayuso evai naiskarmyam sadhayanti uta tesham abdam durapam difficult to obtain kim what to but anyat anything else martyanam of the human beings bhagavat padam of the kingdom of God bhuvi in this world Lola flickering, Ayusa, span of life, yea, those ways certainly. Naiskarmyam, the path of liberation. Sadhayanti, execute, Uta, exactly. Translation by Srivengasi Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. In this material world, every human being has a short span of life, but those who are engaged in devotion service go back home, back to Godhead. For they are actually on the path of liberation. For such persons, there is nothing which is not available. Today we'll see more details to going back home, back to Godhead. We'll look at the reflections of Dhruva Maharaj. What was still the conditioning still there when he saw the Lord? He was reflecting. Why did he desire unwanted things in the first place? Despite he got the mercy of Narada, despite getting initiated, which is important point for us to understand. During Purushottam month, we are supposed to read from past tense of Dhruva Maharaj and Prahlad Maharaj, very significant instructions. As Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself heard hundreds of times both these past tense because they are very significant. Prabhupada also gave so many lectures on these two past tense. So We'll look at that, and we'll also look at the chanting of glories of the holy name. Three types of chanting, and within the chanting, there are different types of chanting. So all these are explained by Namacharya Haridas Thakur conversation between Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So all those things we'll look at as we're discussing glories of the holy name this whole month. In Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna says, Anityam asukam lokam imam prap bhajasamam. The Lord here declares that this material world is full of miseries and at the same time is very flickering. Therefore, one's only duty is to engage himself in devotion service. This is the best end to which human life can be put. Those devotees who are constantly engaged in the service of the lotus feet of the Lord achieve not only all material benefit but also all spiritual benefit. For at the end of life, they go back home, back to Godhead. So that's why we see that this Nalakuvera and Manigriva, when they realized, when they were cursed, and then when they saw the Lord Krishna, and then they are asking, they realized what was their mistake and what they should be asking for. वाणी गुणानुकथने श्रवणौ कथायां हस्तौ च कर्म मनसु तव पादयोर्न स्मृत्यं शिरस्तव तव निवास जगत् प्रणामे दृष्टि सतां दर्शनेस्तु भगवत्तनूनां. Henceforward, may all our words describe your pastimes, Gunanukatane. Sravana, may our ears engage in oral reception of your glories, Kathayam, Krishna Katha. Astaucha karmasu manastava padayorna. May our hands, legs, and other senses engage in actions pleasing to you. May our minds always think of your lotus feet. Smrityam sirastava nivasa jagat praname. May our heads offer our obeisances to everything within this world, because all things are also your different forms. May our eyes see the forms of Vaishnavas who are non-different from you. Drushti satam darsanestu bhavavat tanunam. So this is the way one must think constantly, and then they can go back home, back to Godhead. In this word, the word Naiskarmyam, which means transcendental knowledge, is also significant. Unless one comes to the platform of transcendental knowledge, offers devotion service to the Lord. So that's why we sing the Sikshastakam. We should sing now. I think this is the point. Nice karma. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is describing this also in Sikshastakam. Cheto darpanam bhava mahadavagnirvapanam श्रेयकैरव चन्द्रिका वितरणम् विद्यावधो जीवनम् आनन्दाम्बुधिवर्धनम् प्रतिपदम् पूर्णामृतस्वाधनम् सर्वात्मा स्नपनम् परम् विजेते श्रीकृष्णसङ्कीर्तनम् नाम्नामकारि बहुधा निज सर्वशक्ति तत्रार्पिता नियमिता स्मरणेन काल एतादृशी तव कृपा भगवन् ममापि दुर्दैवमीदृशी हा जनिनानुराग तृणादपि सुनिचेन तरोरपि सहिष्णुना मानिना मानदेन कीर्तनीय सदा हरि न धनं न जनं न सुन्दरीं कवितां वा जगदीश कामये मम जन्मनि जन्मनि ईश्वरे भवतात् भक्तिरहैतुकी त्वयि. This is the point here. Naiskanyam means Nadanam is saying Nadanam, Na Janam, Na Sundarim, Kavitam Va Jagadishan. I don't want wealth, I don't want followers, I don't want middle women, I don't want anything. What do you want? Na Janam, Na Sundarim, Kavitam Va Jagadishakam, Mama Janmani Janmani Isware Bhavatat Bhaktir Ahaituki Toi. Unflinching, unmotivated, uninterrupted devotion service to Lord Krishna's lotus feet. Then is submitting in that position. Ainanda tanuja kinkaram patitam mam vishame bhavambudo krupaya tava pada pankaja stita dhuli sadrisam vichintaya nayanam galadasrudharaya vadanam gadgadarudaya gira पुलकैर्निचितं वपु तव नाम ग्रहणेन भविष्यति युगायितं निमेषेण चक्षुषा प्रावृषायितम् शून्यायतं जगत्सर्वं गोविन्दविरहेण मे गोविन्दविरहेण मे गोविन्दविरहेण मे अश्लेषवां पादरतां तिनस्तु मां अर्महतां करोतु वा यथा तथा वा तुलम्पटो मत्प्राणनादस्तु स एव नापरः मत्प्राणनादस्तु स एव नापरः मत्प्राणनादस्तु स एव नापरः. Generally, the process of jnana, yoga, and karma are executed life after life before one gets a chance to render pure devotion service to the Lord. This chance is given by the grace of a pure devotee, and it is in this way only that one can actually attain liberation. In the context of this narration, the wives of the demigod repented. This is very important, repenting. Because although they had the opportunity to birth in a high planetary system, lifetime spanning millions of years and all material comfort, they were not as fortunate as Prithu Maharaj and his wife, who were actually surpassing them. In other words, Prithu Maharaj and his wives scorned promotion to higher planetary systems and even to Brahmaloka because the position which they were attaining was incomparable. And Lord affirms, Abrahma Bhuvanaloko Punaravartano Arjuna. Manamupetya Konte Punarjanmana Vidyate. If one goes to the highest planet Brahmaloka, he has to return to these miseries of birth, death, old age, and disease. So that is the point here in this verse. And now we can see that first look at the in the Dhruva Maharaj's pastime where this reflection is being given. What is reflecting when he saw the Supreme Lord and he got the benefits, the highest benefit, and then see the reflection. Despite having achieved the desired result of his determination by worshipping the lotus feet of the Lord, Dhruva Maharaj was not very pleased. Thus, he returned to his home. Prabhupada, purport by Srila Prabhupada. By worshipping the lotus feet of the Lord in devotion service as instructed by Narada Muni, Dhruva Maharaj achieved the desired result. His desire was to get a very exalted position, excelling that of his father, grandfather, great grandfather, although it was somewhat childish determination, because Dhruva Maharaj was nothing but a small child. Lord Vishnu, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is so kind and merciful that he fulfilled Dhruva's desire. Dhruva Maharaj wanted a residence more exalted than ever occupied by anyone else in his family. Therefore, he was offered the planet in which the Lord personally resides, and his determination was completely satisfied. Still, when Dhruva Maharaj returned home, he was not very pleased. For although in pure devotional service there is no demand from the Lord, because of his childish nature he had demanded something. Thus, although Lord has fulfilled his desire, he was not very pleased. Rather, he was ashamed that he had demanded something from the Lord, for he should not have done this. So even when the Lord appeared, he should not have asked, but he has asked. That's why he's condemning himself. It's a very important step to be in. Sri Vidura inquired, my dear Brahmana, the abode of the Lord is very difficult to obtain. It can be attained only by pure devotion service, which alone pleases the most affectionate and merciful Lord. Dhruva Maharaj achieved this position even in one life. He was very wise and conscientious. Why then was he not very pleased? And then Prabhupada explains, just as a swan accepts only the milk from a mixture of water and milk, a Paramahamsa accepts only the Supreme Personality of Godhead as his life and soul, neglecting all external material things. Dhruva Maharaj was in this category. Due to his determination, he achieved the result he desired. But still, when he returned home, he was not very pleased. Further, Dhruva Maharaj's heart, which was pierced by the arrows of harsh words of his stepmother, was greatly aggrieved. Thus, when he fixed upon his goal of life, he did not forget his misbehavior. So, still some traces are there. So, that's why we have to be very careful what we think of, what we keep in our heart. So, whatever people are saying, what they have done to us, or we are going to keep Krishna and holy name. So, that we have to clearly identify. Otherwise, it will be the case like this, Dhruva Maharaj. He did not demand actual liberation from this material, but at the end of his devotion service, when the Supreme Personality of Godhead appeared before him, he was simply ashamed of the material demands he had in his mind. Why was that there? Because that incident from the Mother Suruchi has happened. The important verse here has been described by many stalwart commentators. Why was Dhruva Maharaj not very pleased? Even after achieving goal of life, he desired. A pure devotee always free from any kind of material desires. In the material world, one's material desires are all almost demoniac. One thinks of others one's enemies. One thinks of revenge against one's enemies. One aspires to become the topmost leader or topmost person in this material, even in devotion service. Want to be the leader, controller, enjoyer. Still, that traces are there. And thus, one compete with all others. This has been described in Bhagavad Gita 16th chapter as asuric. A pure devotee has no demand from the Lord. His only concern is to serve the Lord sincerely and seriously. He is not at all concerned about what will happen in the future. In Mukunda Mala Stotra, King Kulasekara, author of the book, states in this prayer, my dear Lord, I don't want any position of sense gratification within this material world. I simply want to engage in your service perpetually. As we just discussed, Nadanam Najanam Vachetam Mahaprabhu. So that's the sixth Ashtam, very important. So, Prabhupada is also making that point. In a sixth Ashtak also prayed, my dear Lord, I do not want any amount of material wealth. I do not want any number of materialists to follow, nor do I want any attractive wife to enjoy. The only thing I want is that I may engage life after life in your service. Lord Chaitanya did not pray even for mukti or liberation. In this verse, Maharaj Maitreya replied to Vidura that Dhruva Maharaj influenced by a revengeful attitude. See that. That's why we shouldn't keep this. These things. These are not important. These are very teeny things, which is taking us away from Krishna. That's why we have to understand this principle from Dhruva Maharaj. Influenced by revengeful attitude toward his insulting stepmother, did not think of mukti, nor did he knew what was mukti was. Therefore, he failed to aim for mukti as his goal of life. But as a pure devotee also does not want liberation. His a soul completely surrendered to Supreme Lord, and he does not demand anything from the Lord. This position was realized by Dhruva Maharaj when he saw the Supreme Personality of Godhead present personally before him, because he was elevated to the Vasudeva platform. We discussed Vasudeva means the pure goodness, not tinge of any goodness, passion, or ignorance. Pure goodness, means without any other mixture. The Vasudeva platform refers to the stage at which the material contamination is conspicuous by absence. Only, in other words, where there is no question of material modes of nature, goodness, passion, ignorance, and one can therefore see the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Based on the Vasudeva platform, one can see God face to face. Lord is also called Vasudeva. Dhruva Maharaj's demand were a position so exalted that it was never enjoyed by even by Lord Brahma. His great grandfather Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is so affectionate and kind towards his devotee, especially to a devotee like Dhruva Maharaj, who went to render devotion service in the forest alone at the age of only 5 years, that although the motive might be impure, the Lord does not consider the motive. He is concerned with the service. But if a devotee has a particular motive, the Lord directly or indirectly knows it, and therefore he does not leave the devotee's material desires unfulfilled. These are some of the special favors by the Lord to a devotee, because he has come with a particular desire, so that's why Lord has fulfilled it. But we have to, as a practitioner, we have to understand what we should desire. The Dhruva Maharaj was offered Dhruvaloka, a planet which was never decided upon by any conditioned soul. Even Brahma, although the topmost living creature within this universe, was not allowed to enter Dhruvaloka. Whenever there is a crisis within this universe, the demigod go to the see Supreme Personality of Godhead, Hero the Kasai Vishnu, and they stand on the beach of the milk ocean. So the fulfillment of Dhruva Maharaj's demand, a position more exalted than that of even his great grandfather Brahma, was offered to him. Here in this word, Lord described as Muktipati, which means one under whose lotus feet are all kinds of liberation. There are five kinds of liberation: Sayuja, merging into Brahmana; Sarupya, same form as the Lord; Salokya, same planet as the Lord; Samipya, very close to the Lord, within the Vaikuntha. Also, it could be much distance. There are seven gates, and so much distance could be there. So that is Samipya is even close, next to the Lord, pretty much. Saristri, same appliance as the Lord. Out of these five muktis, which can be achieved by any person engaged in devotion service to the Lord, one which is known as Sayuja is generally demanded by Mayavadi philosophers. They demand become one with the impersonal Brahman effulgence of the Lord. In this opinion, many scholars, Sahajya Mukti, although counted among the five kinds of Mukti, is not actually Mukti, because Sahajya Mukti, one may again fall down into material world. But the living entity always wants reciprocation of love in loving affair. Therefore, although monist philosopher is elevated to the status of being one with the effulgence of the Lord, because there is no facility for associating with the Lord and rendering service unto him, he again falls into the material world. And his service propensity is satisfied with materialistic welfare activities like humanitarianism, altruism, philanthropy. There are many instances of such followers, even for great sannyasis in Mayavada school. That's what happens in India pretty much. Most of the great sannyasis perform these actions. This is not bhakti. Therefore, Vaishnava philosophers do not accept Sahajya Mukti to be within this category of Mukti. According to them, Mukti means transferal to the loving service of the Lord from one's position of serving Maya. Lord Chaitanya also says in this connection that the constitution position of living entity is to render service unto him. The great sage Maitreya explained that Dhruva Maharaj did not desire in the beginning to engage in the service of the Lord, but he wanted an exalted position better than his great grandfather. This is the mistake because he is desiring this. This is more or less not service to the Lord, but service to the senses. Even if one gets the position of Brahma, the most exalted position in this material world is a conditioned soul. So Prabodhananda Saraswati says that if one is elevated to the real pure devotion service, he considers even great demigod like Brahma and Indra to be an equal level with an insignificant insect. The reason is that an insignificant insect has a desire for sense gratification. Even great personality like Lord Brahma also wants to dominate this material nature. Sense gratification means domination over material nature. The whole competition between conditioned soul is based on domination of this material nature. That is the most important point. Dhruva Maharaj's propensity in the beginning was like that. He wanted to dominate this material world in a greater position than Brahma. Therefore, elsewhere it is described that after the appearance of the Lord, when Dhruva Maharaj thought and compared his determination to his final reward, he realized that he had wanted a few particles of broken glass, but instead he had received many diamonds. As soon as he saw the Supreme Personality face to face, he immediately became conscious of the unimportance of his demand from the Lord to have an exalted position than Lord Brahma. When Dhruva Maharaj became situated on Vasudev platform due to seeing the Lord face to face, all his material contamination was cleared. Thus, he became ashamed of what his demands were and what he had achieved. He was very much ashamed to think that although he had gone to Madhuvan, giving up the kingdom of his father, had gotten a spiritual master like Narada Muni, he was still thinking of revenge against his stepmother. A very important point as for a practitioner. Despite after initiation, after 20, 30, 40, 50 years of practice, still, if you have this kind of ideas and thoughts, desires, that's not good. What is the use of then having a spiritual master and surrendering? He was still thinking of revenge against his stepmother and wanted to occupy an exalted position within this material. These were the causes for his moroseness, even after he received all the desired benediction from the Lord. When Dhruva Maharaj finally factually saw the Supreme Person, there was no question of revengeful attitude towards stepmother, nor any aspiration to lord it over the material world. But the Supreme Personality is so kind that he knew Dhruva Maharaj wanted this. Speaking before Dhruva Maharaj used the word Vedaham because when Dhruva Maharaj demanded material benefit, Lord was present within his heart. So he knew everything. So Lord always knows everything a man is thinking. Lord fulfilled Dhruva Maharaj's desire. His revengeful attitude toward his stepmother and stepbrother were satisfied. His desire for more exalted position than of his great grandfather was also fulfilled. At the same time, his eternal position in Dhruvaloka was fixed. Although Dhruva Maharaj's achievement of an eternal planet was not conceived by him, Krishna thought, what will Dhruva do with exalted position within this material world? Therefore, he gave Dhruva the opportunity to rule this material world for 36,000 years, this is in Satyuga, with unchangeable senses and a chance to perform many great sacrifices, thus become most reputed king within this material world. After finishing with all his material enjoyment, Dhruva would be promoted to the spiritual world, which includes Dhruva Loka. So that's why one most important point is material aspirations at any point of time one should not have. Because in the beginning he was under the spell of material energy and wanted to take revenge against his stepmother, rule over his father's kingdom, Dhruva Maharaj greatly lamented his propensity for ruling the material world and his revengeful attitude toward other living entities. This is the important point here Prabhupada is making. Now, coming back to the chanting, there are three stages of chanting. First one is chanting with offenses. There are 10 kinds of offenses which we discussed. If we chant with offense, there is one stage. If we chant, next stage is chant offenseless. That is another. That is called Nam Abbas. So offenseless is not a pure Nam, but it is better than the offensive chanting. So Nam Aparad stage, Nam Abbas, and then Suddha Nam. There are three stages. But when there is a pure chanting, that is success. Nam, Suddhanam. So our aim is to attain that Suddhanam. You will find in Chaitanya Charitamrita discussion between Haridas Thakur and a Brahmana. So by chanting, you can come to the highest stage of perfection. In beginning, there are maybe offenses, but if you try to avoid the offenses, then it is Namabhas. Namabhas means not actually pure name, but almost pure. Namabhas and Suddhanam. When one chants Suddhanam, holy name of God, then he is on the platform of loving platform with Krishna. That is the perfection stage. So now we can understand. Now to get to that level, we need mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. चैतन्य नित्यानंद नाही यही सब विचार नाम लयते प्रेम देना वही अश्रुधारा But if one only chants with some slight faith the holy name of Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda very quickly is cleansed of all offenses. Thus, as soon as he chants the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, he feels the ecstasy of love for God. Sri Bhakti Siddhanta Thakur remarks in this connection, if one takes shelter of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Nityananda Prabhu, follows their instruction to become more tolerant than tree and humbler than the grass, in this way chant the holy name of the Lord, very soon he achieves the platform of transcendental loving service to the Lord and tears appear in his eyes. There are offenses to be considered in chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra, but there are no such consideration in chanting the names of Gaur Nityananda. Therefore, if one chants Hare Krishna Mahamantra, but his life is still full of sinful activities, it will be very difficult for him to achieve the platform of loving service to the Lord. But in spite of being an offender, one chants the holy names of Gaur Nityananda, he is very quickly freed from the reaction to his offenses. Therefore, one should first approach Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda or worship Guru Gauranga, and then come to the stage of worshipping Radha Krishna. In our Krishna constant movement, our students are first advised to worship Guru and Gauranga. Then, when they are somewhat advanced, then the Radha Krishna deity is installed. They are engaged in the worship of the Lord. This I have been explaining for many times. One should first take shelter of Gaur Nityananda in order to reach ultimately Radha Krishna. Sri Narottam Das Thakur sing in this connection. গৌরাঙ্গ বলিতে হবে পুলক শরীরা হরি হরি বলিতে নয়ন ববিনীরা আর কবে নিতাই চাঁদে করুণা হইবে সংসার বাসনা মোর কহে কবে তুচ্ছ হবে বিষয়া ছাড়িয়া কবে শুদ্ধ হবে মন Kabe Hame Eribo Sri Vrindavan. In the beginning, one should very regularly chant Gaurasundar's holy name, then chant the holy name of Lord Nityananda. Thus, one's heart will be cleansed of impure desires for material enjoyment. Then one can approach Vrindavan Dham to worship Lord Krishna. Unless one is favored by Lord Chaitanya and Nityananda, there is no need to go to Vrindavan. For unless one's mind is purified, he cannot see Vrindavan. Even if he goes there, actually going to Vrindavan involves taking shelter of six Goswamis by reading Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Vidagdha Madhava, Lalita Madhava, and other books that they have been given. In this way, one can understand the transcendental loving affairs between Radha and Krishna. Kabe hame buje vase yugala priti. This is what when we are submitting to Vrunda Devi every day during production, that's what we are asking. And to give us this position of uh, to the position of the devotee in Vrindavan Dham. So, to serve Radha and Krishna by the mercy of Gandadevi. The conjugal love between Radha and Krishna is not an ordinary human affair. It is fully transcendental. In order to understand Radha and Krishna, worship them, and engage in loving service, one must be guided by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Nityananda Prabhu, and six Goswamis and Lord Chaitanya's direct disciples. For ordinary man, worship of Sri Chaitanya Nityananda Prabhu or Panchatattva is easier than the worship of Radha and Krishna. Unless one is very fortunate, he should not be induced to worship Radha Krishna directly. A neophyte student who is not sufficiently educated or enlightened should not indulge in the worship of Radha and Krishna or the chanting of Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Even if he does so, he cannot get the desired. One should therefore chant the names of Nitai Gaur and worship them without false prestige. Since everyone within this material world more or less influenced by sinful activities, in the beginning it is essential that one take to the worship of Guru Gauranga and ask their favor. For thus, despite all his disqualification, one will very soon become qualified to worship Radha and Krishna. Should be noted in this connection, the holy names of Lord Krishna and Gaurasundar are both identical with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, one should not consider one name to be better, more potent than the other. Considering the position of people in this age, however, the chanting of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's name is more essential than the chanting of Hare Krishna Mahamantra because Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the most magnanimous incarnation and his mercy is very easily achieved. Therefore, one must first take shelter of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu by chanting जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद. By serving Gaur Nityananda, one is freed from the entanglement of material existence, thus becomes qualified to worship Radha and Krishna. So that's why we have to chant the holy names, especially the primary names of the Supreme Lord, Krishna, Rama, Govinda, Hari, like that, not the secondary names like Bhagavan, Paramatma, Brahman. Those are not the names we should chant. Same way, there are different types of names with different effects. So there are different ways of chanting the name with different effects. The scriptures, of course, declare that if one chants the names of Krishna once or hears the name of Krishna once, whether it be with a pure name or impure name, Jiva is still delivered from the clutches of material energy. However, the types of deliverance and the speed of deliverance must be noted. If the name is chanted in Namabhas impurely, the benefit will come slowly. Because the person will eventually attain pure love of God. The Abbas name is considered all auspicious. By the process of Namabhas, chanting sins are gradually destroyed. Until the name is chanted and heard purely, at that stage of pure chanting, the devotee quickly achieves the goal, pure love of Godhead. There is also the case of chanting or hearing the holy name with more impurity than Namabhas, situated or at a greater distance from the pure name. The greater the distance is, the less the effect of the name. Such obstruction or distance from the name where chanting gives little or no effect is called aparada or offense. Uh, so the obstruction of the Vyavadhana or separation is the mistaken idea that Krishna's name and Krishna are different or separate. In other words, the belief that absolute truth does not reside in the name and that therefore chanting the name cannot bring one to the highest realization of truth is called Vyavadhana or separation. As long as this belief persists, the love of God is impossible to attain. Besides separation based on philosophical principles, there are another type of separation in chanting. This is syllabic separation of Krishna's name. For instance, if the syllable ha and ri are separated from each other by some other syllables, by this syllabic separation, the effects of the holy name are greatly hindered. This is different from the utterance of the word haram by the Yavana unintentionally when it's dying, for there is no separation of the syllables in that utterance. It is therefore classified as namabhas. Ha and re separated syllabically have much less effect. Of the two types of separation, the philosophical separation of Mayavadis is much more detrimental to spiritual progress. Basically, when we chant, also we should be very careful to chant, pronounce exactly, and not pronounce something else. There is also the point here. Not only this syllabic separation of Mayavadi. The belief that the name is not at all powerful and absolute is a great disturbance in Kali Yuga, and this is not accordance with the scripture. By these considerations, one can understand the real nature of the holy name. It is the chanting and hearing of the principal name of Krishna, devoid of Namabhas, Aparad, or Vyavadhan, separation. That is, so that's why separation means anything we chant other than exact syllables, what is given in the Mahamantra, it is separation. That means we will not get the actual result of what we need. So that's why we have to be careful in chanting. That is a pure name, Suddhanam. Whoever accepts and chants the pure name is known as real Vaishnava, may belong to any of the three categories mentioned earlier. In happiness, one should serve such a Vaishnava also. No, this is the important point. In order to overcome Namabhas and get the pure name, the Jiva must serve the bona fide Guru with great attention. This is the key to the success in spiritual life. Without this, there is no, because we don't have that quality. We need to draw this from the Acharya, uh, such exalted and Mahajana, so Prabhupada, the pure devotee, Nitya Siddha Bhakta, so, who is is never conditioned, has come to this material world to just give Krishna Prema, distribute. They are the associates of Radha and Krishna, with them especially. So Prabhupada, Sri Bhakti Siddhanta, they're all already, their names are given. Especially Prabhupada's name is not mentioned, but whom we know from the past times. And the Lord, he is directly in communication with the Lord in this world and in the spiritual world. So that's why we have to follow those Mahajanas, especially those are on that stage. In order to overcome Namavas and get the pure name, Jivas must serve the bona fide Guru with great attention. By doing this, the anarthas will disappear and the pure name endowed with all spiritual potency will dance on the devotee's tongue. At that time, he will never give up the stream of sweet nectar. Emanating from the holy name, the Jiva will chant constantly, mad with the sweetness of the name. In joy, the name will dance, Jiva will dance, the treasure of love of God will dance, the whole universe will dance, and Maya will flee. So, in this way, we can understand this process of pure devotion service, especially the pure chanting. Out of nine kinds of devotion service, chanting of the holy name is the prominent. Bhajanera Madhya Sreshta Navavida Bhakti. Krishna Prema Krishna Ditedare Mahashakti. Among the ways of executing devotion service, nine prescribed methods are best, but out of these, highest potency, great potency to deliver Krishna and ecstatic love is for the chanting of the holy name. Tara Madhya Sarvasreshta, निरपराध नाम लोइले तारामज सर्वश्रेष्ठ नाम संकीर्तन निरपराध नाम लोइले पाए प्रेमधन. Of the nine paths of devotion, most important is always chant the holy name of the Lord. If one does so, avoiding the 10 kinds of offenses, one very easily obtain the valuable love of Godhead. So that's important to note these aspects and then follow it through so that we can attain actually pure devotion service. Um, we'll read, we're almost done. We'll read further from Haridas Thakur's instructions, a few verses, and then we'll stop. This is a conversation between Haridas Thakur and Hiranya Majumdar, Gordhan Majumdar, and then Gopal Chapal. Haridas Thakur protested these two benedictions are not the result of chanting the holy name. Actually, by chanting the holy name without offenses, one awakens his ecstatic love for the lotus feet of Krishna. When a person is actually advanced and takes pleasure in chanting the holy name of the Lord, it is very dear to him. He has agitated and loudly chant the holy name. So that's why for us it is recommended that we chant the holy name of the Lord, not in the mind, but little louder. At least we can hear it. Whether others will hear it or not, that's the secondary thing. Especially in the morning, may not be so good to wake up others in the family. But at least while walking and all outside, we can chant loudly, no problem. When a person is actually advanced and takes pleasure in chanting of the holy name, he is very dear to him. Who is very dear to him? He is agitated and loudly chant the holy name. He also laughs, cries, becomes agitated, chant just like a madman, not caring for outsiders. The liberation and extension of the reactions of sinful life are two concomitant byproducts of the chanting of the holy name of the Lord. An example is found in the gleams of morning of sunlight. As the rising sun immediately dissipates all the world's darkness, which is deep like an ocean, so the holy name of the Lord, if chanted once without offenses, dissipates all the reactions of living beings' sinful life. All glories to the holy name of the Lord, which is auspicious for the entire world. After reciting this verse, Haridas Thakur said, "O learned scholars, please explain the meaning of this verse." Haridas Thakur said, "As the sun begins to rise, even before it is visible, it dissipates the darkness of night. Same way, with the first glimpse of sunlight, fear of thieves, ghosts, demons immediately disappear. In the same way, and when the sun is actually visible, everything is manifest, and everyone begins performing his religious activities and regular duties. Similarly, the first hint that offenseless chanting of the Lord's holy name has awakened dissipates the reactions of sinful life immediately. This is Namabhas. And when one chants the holy name offenselessly, one awakens to service in ecstatic love at the lotus feet of Krishna. Liberation is the insignificant result derived from the glimpse of the awakening of offenseless chanting of the holy name. This is Namavas. While dying, Ajamil chanted the holy name of the Lord, intending to call his son Narayana. Nevertheless, he attained the spiritual world. This is the Namabas. He attains, we ought then to speak of those who chant the holy name with faith and reverence. A liberation which is unacceptable for a pure devotee is always offered by Krishna without difficulty. My devotees do not accept these five liberations, Salokya, Sarasti, Samipya, Sayujan, Sarasti. Even if I offer these liberation in preference to serving me. At the house of Hiranya and Gordhan Majumdar, person named Gopal Chakravarti was officially the chief tax collector, lived in Bengal. He had and this young man Gopal Chand became very angry upon hearing the statements of Haridas Thakur. Immediately criticized him. O assembly of learned scholars, he said, just hear the conclusion of the emotional devotee. After many millions upon millions of births, when one is complete in absolute knowledge, one still may not attain liberation. Yet this man says that only one may attain simply by awakening a glimpse of the holy name. Haridas Thakur said, why are you doubtful? The revealed scripture says that one can attain liberation simply by the glimpse of the offenseless chanting of the holy name. For a devotee who enjoys transcendental bliss of devotion service, liberation is most insignificant. Therefore, pure devotees never desire to achieve liberation. My dear Lord, O Master of the universe, since I have directly seen you, my transcendental bliss has taken the shape of a great ocean. Being situated in that ocean, I can realize now all other so-called happiness, including even Brahmananda, to be like the water contained in the hoofprint of a calf. Gopal Chakravarti is saying, if one is not liberated by Namabha, then you may be certain that I shall cut off your nose. Then Haridas Thakur accepted the challenge offered by Gopal Chakravarti. If by Namabha's liberation is not available, he said, certainly I shall cut off my nose. All the members of the assembly who had heard the challenge were greatly agitated. They got up, making a tumultuous sound. Hiranya and Gordhan Majumdar both immediately chastised the Brahmana tax collector. The priest named Balram Acharya also chastised Gopal Chakravarti. You are a foolish logician. He said, what do you know about the devotion service of the Lord? You have insulted Haridas Thakur. Thus, there will be dangerous position for you. You should not expect anything auspicious. Haridas Thakur got up to leave, and the Majumdar's master Gopal Chakravarti immediately kicked him out and dismissed him from their service. With all the members of the assembly, the two Majum fell at the lotus feet of Haridas Thakur, and Haridas Thakur was smiling. However, he spoke a sweet voice. None of you at your fault, he said. Indeed, even this ignorant so-called Brahman is not at fault, for he is accustomed to dry speculation and logic. One cannot understand the glories of the holy name by simply by logic and argument. Therefore, this man cannot possibly understand the glories of the holy name. All of you may now go to your homes. May Lord Krishna bestow his blessings upon you all. Do not be sorry because of my being insulted. This is an important point. See this kind of state of consciousness. What consciousness Bharidas Thakur is. This is the consciousness we should develop. At any point, we should not um, even if somebody is criticizing, somebody is offending, here he has taken positively because he knows his position is only to ultimate goal of life, develop Krishna Prema. Yeah, nothing else should be in our forefront. Nothing else should block our service to Krishna because otherwise it will block. You can't think of Krishna when you are thinking of others, criticizing others. He has said this, then it will hinder our progress in devotion service, hinder our service to Krishna. Although Haridas Thakur as a Vaishnava did not take seriously the Brahmanas' offense, the Supreme Personality of Godhead could not tolerate it. Thus, he made the Brahmanas suffer the consequences. A characteristic of pure devotee is that he excuses any offense by an ignorant rascal. A characteristic of Krishna, however, is that he cannot tolerate blasphemy of his devotees. Haridas Thakur was very unhappy when he heard that Brahmana Gopal Chakravarti has been attacked by leprosy. Thus, after informing Balram Acharya, the priest of Hiranya Majumdar, he went to Shantipur, the home of Advaita Acharya. This is another pastime, but anyway, we can understand here from this Haridas Thakur's description that Nam Abbas, just like sun arising, immediately darkness is gone. This is not yet complete. When sun arises fully, initially fog disappears. That just the light glimpse. That is Nam Abbas. Same way that even offenseless chanting clears liberation and everything. So when we chant the holy name, pure name, further after practice of that Nam Abbas, some more time, everything is this is only attained by service to a pure devotee of the Lord, spiritual master. This can be attained to Nam Abbas. And then gradually we will continue to do that, then we'll come to Suddhanam. Then we have attained the ultimate goal. So that's what we have to practice based on this instruction from Haridas Thakur, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and Dhruva Maharaj. We can clearly understand how to go back home, back to Godhead, just like Dhruva Maharaj and Madhurachi has done Durapam. Very difficult, but it is possible. It is simple. It is just we have to follow the process strictly as it is given. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Gandhara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Nama Prabhu ki jai. Prabhupada ki jai. Gaur Bhaktam ki jai.